Leaders Climate Summit convened in Belém on November 6 ahead of COP30. Global leaders gathered in the Brazilian Amazon heard a dire warning from host President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva about the urgency of tackling climate change.
As perdas humanas e materiais serão drásticas.
The loss of human lives and material resources will be drastic. More than 250,000 people could die every year. The global GDP may shrink by up to 30%. That's why COP30 will be the COP of truth. It's time to take the warnings of science seriously.
The next day, with leaders still in Belém, climate change showed itself violently in Brazil's far south. Rare tornadoes hit the state of Paraná, tearing roofs off homes, knocking down power lines, and destroying silos. Entire towns were left in the dark.
We live here and this kind of thing had never happened, but now it has. What can we do? Who can stand up to nature?
It was not only in Paraná. Unusually strong storms and the floods and landslides that follow were a defining phase of climate change in 2025. In Indonesia's Aceh province, floods cut off an Islamic boarding school for 7 days, leaving hundreds stranded.
We had no access to anything here for 7 days. We consumed palm tree shoots. Students collected floodwater and boiled it. Almost 90% of homes around us were destroyed.
In Somalia, powerful flash floods submerged homes in Mogadishu, forcing families to wade through deep water to escape fast-moving currents. Across the Caribbean, Hurricane Melissa, the strongest storm ever recorded to hit Jamaica, carved the path of destruction. Drones captured entire stretches of coastline torn apart. In Cuba, soldiers rescued residents from flooded neighborhoods. And in Haiti, streets turned into rivers of mud and debris. In the United States, deadly flash floods tore through a summer camp in Central Texas, killing more than 100 people, many of them children.
I thought if she could hold on to something, she would be okay. Instead, she and 2 other little girls were knocked out of a tree and died.
Inside the conference halls at COP30, frustration hit many environmentalists who argue that negotiations are still far from addressing the urgency seen on the ground.
The discussion is not for the sake of diplomats. It's for those who lost their homes in Rio Grande do Sul, for those hit by hurricanes in Jamaica, for the people suffering in the Philippines and in Somalia.
China urged countries to lift trade barriers that slow the global spread of green technologies such as solar panels and advanced batteries, essential for the transition to clean energy. China was also among the countries which announced their new targets for reducing emissions from 7% to 10% by 2035.
I think we're at the beginning of seeing more leadership from the Chinese side and potentially more struggles and difficulties when it comes to climate progress in many Western countries, in particular the U.S., as they are heavily divided politically on this topic.
There had been hopes that COP30 here in Belém would move decisively into implementation of measures long on the table, especially the phase-out of fossil fuels to tackle climate change. But analysts, climate experts, and even many governments say the outcome still falls short of those expectations. Small island nations used COP30 to warn that their survival is under threat as rising seas and stronger storms reshape their daily lives.
Yeah, different countries have many different challenges. So you've got countries like Fiji, Vanuatu, etc., where the intensity and the frequency of cyclones are unseen and unheard of. But then you've got atoll nations, which is low-lying countries where sea level rise are impacting everything from the way they used to eat their food. They can't grow their staple food and their traditional foods anymore because the land is salinated. They cannot drink from their wells because the water has seeped into that.
This climate scientist says the world must shift from reacting to disasters to preventing them.
We're in the wrong framework. We're thinking about disaster kind of response, but we ought to be thinking about what we do to make our earth and our society and our communities more kind of resilient. But the very best way to really avoid increasing impacts is to reduce our emissions from fossil fuels as urgently as possible.
From Indonesia to Texas, from Somalia to Brazil, 2025 has shown a world where extreme weather is accelerating, often faster than communities can adapt. Paulo Cabral, CGTN, Belém, Brazil.